Us live from Washington. Thank you very much for joining us, Nina. Now, is this the end for all those who were trailing him in the race?
I think it pretty much is. I mean, even just a few weeks ago, Donald Trump was being mocked and derided here in Washington and also abroad. Just a year ago, there were 17 Republican contenders for the top job. Where have they all gone? Donald Trump appears to have become unstoppable. We heard in that report just there that the magic number of 1,257, he surpassed that number. That comes through the Associated Press, which spoke to a small group of unbound delegates who indicated that they will back Donald Trump. How has he got there? Well, he's pushed certain buttons with angry American voters who are fed up with Washington by telling them that it's time to put themselves and America first. And we've just heard from Donald Trump in his victory speech claiming and saying and insisting that he plans to unite America and Americans behind him.
Now, Nina, is this a given that the delegates will give him a thumbs up?
It looks likely. The party seems to be gradually, reluctantly uniting behind him. I think there's a certain degree of shock and surprise. It's taken Republicans inside the Republican Party some time, I think, to catch up to the fact that there was this tidal wave of support for Donald Trump. And the Republican Party has been facing a dilemma. If they really wanted to go without Trump and to push other nominees forward, the question was always going to be how could they do that and maintain and retain Donald Trump's supporters, and that was never really clear. I think there's a degree of surprise also in the international community. We heard from President Barack Obama earlier from Japan, speaking at the G7 summit, saying that world leaders were rattled by the prospect and the idea that Donald Trump might actually become president. And I think that also reflects a certain degree of shock within Washington and foreign delegations here and diplomats who have failed to catch up to the fact that Donald Trump might actually win. And they have not really put any energy or resources into cultivating their ties to the Donald Trump campaign. And I think that may come back to bite.
Now, Nina, you've actually mentioned shock, which is one thing that actually keeps coming up. Initially, political analysts were saying that Donald Trump is the worst alternative to Hillary Clinton. Are the sentiments still the same in this context, considering that he's getting a lot of support?
Well, the latest polls, and we've seen a raft of polls in recent days that show that the difference between them is tightening, and that Hillary Clinton is just 2 points ahead of Donald Trump in some polls. And I think that shows that she herself is struggling. Who would have imagined that the party with the most difficult and perhaps even more bitter debate among themselves was the Democrats? I mean, the fact that the Republican Party has settled on its nominee, and that the Democrats haven't, and that there is still a lot of support for Bernie Sanders, angry support, people that actually loathe Hillary Clinton, shows that the Democratic side is not yet sewn up.
Let's look at the reaction from ordinary Americans, or rather inland Mexican Americans to be specific. How are they taking the news?
Well, the Hispanic American news media, for them, it's the top story today. I think there's a degree of surprise, again, shock that he clinched the nomination, renewed pledges that they're going to have to deal with it, that they're going to have to deal with the prospect of Donald Trump rising, potentially even becoming America's next president. Donald Trump himself continues to repeat the line that he plans to build a wall between America and Mexico, and that Mexico is going to pay for it. And the Latino community itself is further mobilizing itself to vote, and there is some evidence to suggest that a number of Latinos and the Hispanic American community are really pushing to get their citizenship papers through in order to vote against Trump. And there is some speculation that they're also trying to rush that citizenship process through before Trump takes the White House, if indeed that happens.
Nina, let's shift focus to the Democratic side. The race between Hillary Clinton and her rival Bernie Sanders seems to be getting increasingly bitter. What's happening there at the moment?
Well, the prevailing narrative is that Hillary Clinton will clinch her party's nomination. If she wins, that pits her directly against Donald Trump. Donald Trump, in his victory speech just now, said that he would welcome racing against Hillary. He's just challenged Bernie Sanders to a debate, a televised debate, ahead of an important primary in California on June the 7th. But again, she still hasn't got it in the bag, and that's partly because she herself is under considerable scrutiny. She faces an ongoing FBI investigation over her handling of government business during her tenure as Secretary of State, and her extensive use, as it turns out, of private email and a private email server. So Hillary Clinton is feeling the heat. There's also some discussion within Washington about what happens to Bernie Sanders supporters if Hillary does then go on to win the nomination, and whether they might hate her so much that they would even consider defecting to Donald Trump and voting for him instead. So you can see that the level of anger is deep, and that there is some suggestion that President Barack Obama himself is frustrated that it's taking this long. He wants the Democratic nomination settled so that Hillary Clinton can emerge as the front runner and really clinch her lead over Donald Trump.
Now, Nina, speaking of that lead, what's at stake now between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump? What do they each need to do to clinch this?
Well, there's still a lot of work ahead. I mean, I think one of the reasons that Donald Trump is in the position that he's in is partly because of the plain, simple English that he speaks. He's hit, as I say, certain buttons that have resonated with American voters. There's a strain of anti-globalization, anger over jobs lost to outsourcing. His America First policies have won him a lot of support. He's well known, he's rich, he's recognized, he's done television. He's also anti-establishment and anti-Washington, something that Hillary Clinton is not. We've seen her flip-flop on issues like free trade and certain bilateral, multilateral trade deals. I think Hillary Clinton has struggled to put as much sort of plain speaking energy as Donald Trump into the debate, and perhaps that's more for her to lose and more for him to win.
Nina, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much for that update. That was our correspondent, Nina Maria Potts, joining us live from Washington. Interesting turn of events. Are we shocked?
Very interesting, very shocking, just as much as everyone is shocked. I think the Republicans themselves, as Nina mentioned, they're just as shocked that Trump is actually the front runner.
But you know, I read an article the other day, and it was actually mentioning how good a marketer Trump is. And I think his marketing skills have put him right up there. But another thing about him is that he probably says the things that a lot of people say at home at their dinner tables, and they don't say, and they are saying it by voting for him. So it's going to be interesting to see who wins that presidential vote come November.
Hillary Clinton right now is going through a lot.
That
investigation is not doing any justice to her or for the Democratic Party.
Let's look at some local news now.